Hello and welcome. On my right, Miss Gabriela Hunt. My name is Steve Baker, and it is our pleasure to present to you the Hohner Chromatic Harmonica Workshops. For the first time in the history of our instrument, the world's leading harmonica manufacturer has put together a series of videos which will provide you, the player, with the information you need to enable you to conduct repair and maintenance operations on your harmonicas yourself. From time to time, harmonicas need tuning and maintenance, just like any other musical instrument. The slide package may need cleaning or lubricating, and the wind saver valves may need to be replaced. To date, no one has found a reed material which will not at some time fatigue and wear out. Because you see, the most important thing when playing the harmonica is the sound. And you should never let the fact that the reeds will eventually wear out prevent you from playing with a powerful throat vibrato or bending heavily, because if a reed does break, you can replace it. The Hohner Harmonica Service Workshops are intended to show you what a quantum leap you can make if you learn to perform these service and maintenance operations yourself. Because once you've got the hang of it, you will own instruments which are priceless because they have been set up to reflect your requirements as a player. Now, when you're learning to do this, it's really important to practice at first on an old instrument, because harmonica repair work requires a light touch and it needs a bit of practice. So when you start performing the operations which we're going to be showing you in these videos, please do it on an old instrument first. You won't regret it. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop C01, the Hohner Toolkits. This is the Hohner Service Set, the essential toolkit for everyday maintenance. It's a compact and highly recommendable set of tools which will enable you to perform most of the basic tasks involved in harmonica maintenance. The set is suitable for both diatonic blues harps and chromatic harmonicas, and is used for the 5 basic operations of harmonica maintenance: reed offsetting, reed centering, tuning reeds, replacing wind savers, and maintaining the slide package. This is tool number 1, the reed tuning scraper, and it's used for lowering the pitch of reeds. Tool number 2, the reed lifting blade with reed wrench. This is an essential tool for many reed operations. It's used for centering reeds, it's used for offsetting reeds, and it's used as a support when tuning reeds. Number 3, the hook tool. This is sometimes used when offsetting, but its main purpose is when tuning reeds situated on the inside of the reed plate. You use it to push the tip of the reed through the slot so that you can then work on it. Number 4, the fine tuning file. This is used when tuning reeds and also for true squaring them to ensure that they don't stick in the slot. Tool number 5 is a reversible screwdriver with a straight slot and a posidrive tip. This is used both for cover plate screws and reed plate screws. Number 6 is a tube of valve glue. This is a red rubber adhesive used for sticking wind savers in place. Number 7, a complete set of wind saver valves. The set also includes, number 8, a cleaning cloth used for cleaning the covers and the mouthpiece. And finally, number 9, slide lubricant. This is the Hohner Instant Workshop Set, the essential pro tools for all Hohner harmonica workshops. It includes the Hohner Service Set, and in addition, it contains tools which we have specially developed to enable you to replace reeds and also to perforate wind savers. Tool 10 is the combination deriveting tool. This is really the centerpiece of the Instant Workshop set. It's a special pliers with two interchangeable bits with which you can punch out the old rivet, and also you punch a hole in the new windsaver. Tool 11 is a 1.4mm reamer. This is used for reaming up the holes in reed plate and in reed so that they fit the new stud bolt. Tool number 12 is a universal holder. As you've just seen, it's used for holding the reamer, but it's also extremely useful for holding the stud bolts when inserting them. Tool 13 is a drill bit. This is held in the hand to deburr the edges of the holes which one has cut in the reed plate or reamed in the reed. Tool 14. This is a 1.4mm tap, which is used for cutting a thread into the reed plate in order to mount the stud bolt. Tool 15 is a special screwdriver which is used to affix the stud bolt to the reed plate. Tool 16 is a star nut spanner. This is used to secure the star nut to the stud bolt, thus affixing the new reed in place. Numbers 17 and 18 are star nuts and stud bolts, 50 in each packet, which are used to affix the new reeds in place. The maintenance-free harmonica does not exist. If you play a lot, you're bound to wear them out, and the only way to ensure that they last forever is not to play them. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO2, cleaning. From time to time, it's necessary to clean your harmonica. This is both for hygienic reasons and also to ensure that it continues to function optimally. In order to perform this job, you need the following tools from the Hohner service set: the reed lifting blade, the screwdriver, the cleaning cloth, the slide lubricant, and it's very helpful to also use the mouthpiece cleaner, which you can order separately from the Hohner C shop. Gabby's going to show you how to do this using a Super 64 Chromonica. The first step is to unscrew the cover plate screws. Through playing, you'll find that a residue of dried skin and dried saliva accumulates on the inside leading edge of the covers. It's a good idea to remove this from time to time, and you can do that by spraying the cleaning cloth with a little of the mouthpiece cleanser and then wiping off this deposit. The next step is to remove the mouthpiece and slide assembly. And as you can see, Gabi is unscrewing the two screws, one at each end of the mouthpiece. And when they are completely loosened, she loosens them by hand and then lifts off the complete mouthpiece and slide assembly. The Super 64 has a three-part slide assembly, as you can see. When taking it apart, it's important to not lose the buffers which fit over the screws to stop the slide knocking into them. These are small and rather fiddly. Should you ever lose a buffer, or should you see that they're worn out, which may very easily be the case if you've been playing the instrument for several years, then contact your local music retailer for replacements or log on to the Hohner C shop. Now Gabi's going to clean the mouthpiece and the slide assembly, starting with the mouthpiece. First of all, you have to remove the screws, of course, but try not to lose them. After cleaning the mouthpiece, we clean the blank. The blank actually sits behind the slide against the body of the instrument. And after cleaning the blank, she then cleans the slide itself. When cleaning the slide assembly, it's very important to make sure that you do not bend either the slide or the blank. And this is the reason why Gabi was cleaning them against the table to avoid tensioning the metal. In order to clean the reed plates, it's necessary to remove them from the body of the instrument. This requires the Posidrive tip of the screwdriver, so Gabi is turning the head around in order to be able to unscrew the reed plate screws. When removing the reed plates, it's very important to first of all loosen all of the screws evenly. Don't just take one out and leave the others in. Loosen them all and then remove them one after the other when they've all been loosened to the same amount that they come out easily. Now that all the screws have been loosened, remove them one after the other. When all the screws have been removed, then it's possible to lever off the reed plates using the fingernail. The supports, which hold the covers up, come off with the reed plate and are quite easy to then remove from the plate itself. Perfect. When taking the reed plates off, be careful that the slide spring does not jump out of its mounting, because it can be fiddly to get it back in again. Now the next step is to clean the groove at the front edge of the reed plate, which you do with the cleaning cloth and the cleaning fluid. It's only necessary to remove and clean the reed plates if there really is some kind of malfunction of the instrument, like for example a rattle from a loose wind saver, or if it is not airtight. If it's working properly, then don't take the reed plates off because it's not necessary. Just as a residue of dried saliva can build up on the inside of the covers or on the edge of the reed plate, it can also develop on the reeds or the slots themselves. In order to remove this, it's necessary to plink the reeds with the reed lifting tool. And this is what Gabi is doing here. This is an essential step whenever you work on reeds. Whatever you're doing, whether you're cleaning them, offsetting them, or tuning them, you should regularly plink the reed. You lift the tip with the reed lifting tool and let it snap back into the slot. This has the effect in this instance of removing any tiny encrustations on the side of the slot and make sure that the reed can vibrate freely. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO2.1, Assembling the Slide Package. The first step in reassembling your chromatic harmonica is to screw on the reed plates. There are two things that one has to remember while doing this. The first is that, of course, you have to have the long reeds where the long slots are to be found on the comb. The second thing is that the reed plate grooves have to be at the front on the outside. And then you simply fit the screws through the holes, the larger holes on the upper reed plate, and screw them into the thread on the lower reed plate. The first screws that are inserted are the outside screws at the bottom edges, the back of the comb. And these are slightly tightened into their threads on the other reed plate so that the reed plates stay in position. After that, the other screws are inserted starting in the middle and also just screwed in slightly. They mustn't be tightened. They're simply locked into place so that they stay in the hole. And working from the middle of the reed plate outwards towards the sides, all of the screws are inserted one after the other. And only after they are all in place and locked into their respective threads does one start tightening them. And you start tightening in the middle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You start tightening in the middle and work outwards, and you do this in stages. because otherwise what can happen is the reed plate warps and then it won't be airtight. When all the screws have been screwed in to a point where the heads are about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters above the reed plate, you start to tighten them, starting at the back in the middle and working outwards towards the ends of the reed plate with the screws at the back. When these have all been tightened, you then go to the front row of screws and once again, starting in the middle, work outwards towards the edges of the reed plate. One thing that it's really important to pay attention to when screwing in these reed plate screws is not to over-tighten them. If you over-tighten reed plate screws, you can cause the reed plate to warp, and this will mean that the instrument is not airtight. So don't tighten them as tight as they will go, just tighten them until you meet with proper resistance, but the screw head has reached the reed plate. Another thing that can happen, should you over-tighten the reed plate screws and warp the reed plate, is due to the extremely narrow tolerances between reed and slot, this can cause the reed to clip the edge of the slot, and this is something to be avoided at all costs. So don't over-tighten the reed plate screws. It's impossible to say exactly how frequently the slide package of a chromatic harmonica should be disassembled and cleaned. However, it's safe to say that if the slide is sticking or if the mouthpiece is loose and losing air, then it's time to take a look at it. Afterwards, you need to reassemble the slide package so that it functions optimally. The only tool that you need to do this is the screwdriver. One thing that it's important to remember when reassembling the slide package is that you have to put the reed plates firmly onto the comb first because they stabilize the comb. And if you don't do this, then the pressure of the slide assembly on the front of the comb may cause the comb to warp so that the instrument won't be airtight. It's an operation which only takes seconds when performed by professionals in the Hohner factory, but it can be a daunting prospect if you only have to do it occasionally. It's a matter of some controversy whether it's actually necessary to use slide lubricant. Actually, for most people, their saliva is all the lubricant that they need, but the composition of different people's saliva is different. If you think that you need to use slide lubricant to get a smooth slide action, use it extremely sparingly. What Gabi is going to do now is put a drop on each side of the slide, a tiny drop, as I'm sure you can see, and then spread it with the forefinger and thumb evenly along the whole length. You don't need to use any more than that, and you need to avoid at all costs that it gets inside the instrument, because if it gets onto your wind savers or into the reed slots, then it's going to gum them up, so use it sparingly. The first step is to place the blank on the front of the comb assembly. Then the slide is placed on top of the blank and the slide spring is inserted through the appropriate hole in the slide. Correctly positioning the mouthpiece and tightening the screws is the most critical part of assembling the slide package. Start with the screw on the opposite side to the slide button. Here, the buffer is slipped over the screw, and then the screw is inserted into the hole in the front of the comb assembly. When it's sitting firmly in place, the screw is tightened lightly, a maximum of 2 turns, no more. You're not meant to screw it in. Now the mouthpiece screw on the slide button side of the mouthpiece is inserted into the hole from the front, and the buffer is pushed over the screw from the other side. It's a bit fiddly trying to get the screw and the buffer on the slide button side into the hole. The best way to do this is to push the slide button in slightly, as this then exposes the hole and permits you to slot the screw into the hole. If you're unlucky at this stage, then the slide spring may jump out of its position, and you can also have the mischance that the buffer falls inside the instrument. If this happens, you have little alternative but to take the reed plates off and start again. So be patient and good luck. So if that went well, both screws should now be in position and they can now be carefully tightened. The next step is then to check the slide action to see how smoothly it moves. As the mouthpiece screws haven't been fully tightened at this point, the slide should move completely freely. What we now do is tighten the screw on the opposite side to the slide button until you feel a clear resistance when pushing in the slide button. Then loosen the screw just a tiny bit and the action will be right. And now this procedure is repeated on the other side where the button is found. And like that, the slide can move freely, but the slide assembly is airtight. Now it's time to play the instrument through one time to make sure that everything is working all right. All right. And now with the slide button in, wonderful. So that's working again and it's airtight. What we now do is insert the cover supports, which you can just basically push back into the holes that they came from before. One only needs really to press them in slightly. It doesn't require any great strength. And now it's time to put the covers back on again, which is done fairly quickly and easily. Once again, this can be a bit fiddly with full-length covers because you need to make sure that they are really sitting exactly right. Otherwise, you can't get the two screws to join up. But it appears to have worked. Et voila, completely reassembled. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO3, exchanging reed plates. Replacement reed plates are available for all Hohner chromatic harmonica models. You can obtain them from your local music retailer or online from the Hohner C shop. The only tool that you require to perform this operation is the screwdriver. You'll need both ends of it. The first step is to remove the covers, loosen the cover plate screws. When the cover screws have been loosened, you remove the cover plates. It's important to be careful not to catch the edges of the plates on the wind savers or on the reeds because you can push these out of alignment. So the way that Gabby just showed you of placing the instrument on the back of the comb and then moving the cover plates off it is the safest way to do this. Before proceeding further, you need to loosen the mouthpiece. In order to do this, insert the tip of the screwdriver into each of the screws and turn them just a couple of turns. Don't unscrew them. You don't want the mouthpiece to come off, you just want it to be slightly detensioned. Now you need to turn the screwdriver bit around so that you have the posidrive tip. Starting in the middle of the reed plate, you loosen the screws and working once again from the middle towards the edges. When disassembling the instrument, it's not a problem to do this gradually. You can unscrew the screws completely, basically, in one go. But it's always a good idea to get into the habit of starting in the middle of the reed plate and working outwards towards the ends, rather than starting at one end and working along towards the other end, for example. When all the screws have been removed, then you lift off the reed plates with a fingernail. the cover supports will come off at the same time. So, with the exception of the mouthpiece, you have now completely disassembled the harmonica. One thing that you have to watch out for at this stage is not to knock the instrument, because it's very easy for the slide spring to jump out of its mounting, and you do not want that to happen. Now remove the replacement reed plates from the original Hohner packaging. As you'll see, they are in a folded piece of card. The purpose of this is to protect the wind savers and the reeds. With all these operations, you have to be careful not to knock the wind savers and not to knock the reeds, because you can easily push them out of alignment. Upper and lower reed plates can be distinguished quite easily. The upper plate has holes which are through holes, they're larger. And the lower reed plate has smaller holes because the self-tapping screws have to cut a thread into them. You can also tell which way around to mount the reed plates because the reed plate groove always sits outside of the comb at the front. So now it's time to mount the new reed plates. As I said before, the lower plate does not have threads cut in the holes. You cut the thread with the screws when you screw them in. What this means is that you have to exert a considerable degree of turning force at the start of this process because your screw cuts the thread into the lower plate. However, after you've turned it 2 to 3 times, it will have cut the thread and will move freely. So you need to slacken off on the pressure after this, otherwise you may damage the nice new thread that you've just cut in the reed plate. So after you've cut the thread, just tighten the screws gently. Once again, we start at the outside edges of the reed plate and insert the screws left and right at the back to fix the reed plate in position, not tightening them completely, just cutting the thread and turning them in. And then we start in the middle of the plate and work towards the outer ends. Once again, cutting each thread first and not fully tightening the screw until all the threads have been cut and all the screws are in place. There's a couple of points that it's important to pay attention to when fitting new reed plates. You need to make sure that the plates are flush with the surface of the comb along the whole front edge so that you don't have any air gaps. And once again, the most important thing, don't over tighten. Once you've cut the thread, you turn the screw in until you start to feel firm resistance and the head is against the reed plate. Don't tighten them further than that, or you may damage the thread or warp the reed plate. Both of these will have negative effects on the air tightness of your instrument. Something that you ought to bear in mind when fitting new reed plates is also that it is not possible to fine-tune or offset these plates in the factory because these operations can only be performed on the assembled instrument. What that means is after you have installed the new reed plates, you will need to check the reed gapping and you may need to check the fine-tuning. So we recommend that you look at the appropriate workshops in this series. So now we need to tighten the mouthpiece screws. Don't turn them too tight. The slide has to be able to move freely without too much resistance and without too much noise. And then it's time to test the new reed plates. So now it's time to put the cover supports back in place. Just push them in. And when you've done that, then screw the cover plates back on. Gabi is putting the one screw in like that to position the first cover plate. And then you can put the second screw in and it will lock into the jacket that she put in first. And then one repeats the process at the other end of the instrument. Et voila. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop C04, Centering. To center reeds, you need only one tool from the Hohner service set. That is the reed lifting tool with reed wrench. You need both ends of it this time. A harmonica reed is basically a spring which is affixed at one end over a slot. The reed, when it's blown, vibrates swinging through this slot periodically at a frequency which is determined by its length and by its flexibility. This causes the airstream in the vocal tract of the player to vibrate with the same periodic frequency. These vibrations are further amplified by the form adopted in the vocal tract, and it is the combination of these factors that creates the sound perceived by the listener. In order for the reed to function properly, it's therefore necessary that it can oscillate freely. And what this means is that it is not allowed to clip the slot at any point. There is an air gap around the reed which is extremely narrow. It has a width which is measured in thousandths of millimeters. And so what we're talking about is fairly precise adjustments. In order for the reed to be able to function properly, it has to be centered exactly in the slot. And this is done using the reed wrench at the other end of the reed lifting tool. The simplest way to do this is to look at the reed plate against the light. In order to be able to do this with a chromatic harmonica, you need to first of all remove the wind saver from the opposite side of the reed. You just pull it off like that. When you've removed the wind saver, you look at the reed against a light source. Then you can see the air gap around it, and you can see if the reed is actually in contact with the slot at any point. By plucking it, you can also hear if it's in contact with the slot. It helps when doing this to also push the reed into the slot with the thumb so that you can see if when it's not in its rest position, it's actually pushing against the side. And now what Gabi is doing is adjusting the angle of the foot of the reed with the reed wrench so that the sides of the reed are exactly parallel to the sides of the slot. If the reed strikes the slot at any point, it basically is unable to oscillate. So if this happens, you will not get a note, and you therefore need to center the reed in order to correct this problem. This is the sound of a reed which cannot pass through the slot. And now we straighten it out with the reed wrench, looking against the light source so you can see the air gap. So now Gabi has centered the reed using the reed wrench, and it now sounds like this. As you can hear, it can now oscillate freely again. There are a number of reasons why a reed can become decentered. For example, negligence when removing the covers or the reed plates. Perhaps the instrument sustained some knocks from the side which have knocked it out of alignment. It can also occur when reed offsetting or when tuning. And of course, it's also possible that the alignment can change due to settling of the reed material. This can happen over a period of weeks. All of these reasons can contribute to the decentering of the reed so that you get a reed which clips the side of the slot. This means that learning to center harmonica reeds is one of the basic tasks which you need to know how to perform in order to help your harmonica to function optimally. What we've just shown you can only really be done on reed plates which have been unscrewed from the comb. However, it is also possible to center reeds when they are mounted, and also to center reeds which are on the inside of the comb. With reeds mounted inside the comb, it is really a lot easier to perform this operation if you take the reed plates off. When you have more experience, you can learn which direction you want to push the reed in, but at first it's definitely a lot easier to take the wind savers off and to also remove the reed plates. A lot of the time, it's better to use the reed lifting tool, the actual blade part of it, rather than the reed wrench, and use it as a lever to lever the reed into the desired position. Here Gabby is doing this on an outside reed, sliding the blade up the side of the reed and levering it over and plucking it. And now she's going to do it on an inside reed. And here it's necessary to play the note in order to see if it works properly. That's reed centering by experts, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO5, reed offsetting. The reed offset is a very central aspect of getting your harmonica to sound good because it determines the response of the reed. So we'll go into this in some detail. The tools you need for this workshop is the hook and the reed lifting tool. The reed offset refers to the gap between the tip of the reed and the plate. And if it is set so that there is no gap and that the reed is flush with the plate, then no air is able to pass through the slot and no tone can be produced. Adjusting the offset is something which players need to learn to do because everybody has different requirements in terms of how powerfully they play and how loudly they play, so it's a very individual adjustment. To put it in a nutshell, the general rule of thumb for reed offset is that the distance between the tip of the reed and the reed plate should be about the same as the thickness of the reed at the tip. The other general rule is the louder and more powerfully you play, the higher you will need to offset the reeds to get response which will allow you to do this. Reed offsetting is an essential and basic skill, actually as essential as learning to play, because you see, it's not possible to take one offset to suit all playing styles, so you need to find one that suits you. If the reed offset is too high, the reed can't respond properly. This is what an offset which is much too high sounds like. You hear Gabby sucking air here. So what are we going to do to correct that? With the hook tool, we push the reed down into the slot. Because the reed is a spring, what you're basically doing is resetting its rest position. So when you've pushed it down a few times, you also need to plink it so that it can settle. Much better. It's important to remember that a reed is a spring. What that means is it has to be bent past its elasticity point in order to reset the rest position. Due to the memory effect of the metal, it can often happen that the reed will return to its earlier rest position even sometime later. So what you have to do is to work it, and the best way to do this is to plink it. Because like this, the reed will find its new rest position. So even if it's standing up higher than you think it needs to be, you plink it a few times and it'll settle. We recommend doing this several times during every reed work operation because it's the only way to get the reed to settle into a stable position. This is the same for offsetting as for tuning or any other operations on reeds. When offsetting, it's important to only apply pressure to the tip of the reed. If you pressure it too near towards the foot, you can distort it, and then it is very difficult to correct the resulting curve that you set in the reed. It's also vital to avoid the reed profile dipping into the slot, because if it does, this will deaden the response and it's really difficult to get it out again. So only work at the tip of the reed and make sure that you don't push the middle down into the slot. You see that you can actually raise the reed quite high up and let it snap back because these are springs. So it's necessary sometimes to exert more pressure than one would imagine to change the offset. But you have to be careful not to exert too much. Here we have a reed which is offset too low. If it's played hard, it isn't going to work. If you play it softly, however, it might sound. So this is an offset which needs to be raised slightly. Using the reed lifting blade, you lift the tip of the reed to raise the offset and plink it so that you can hear it. If it's set right, then it should respond both at low volume and at high volume. So now Gabi's going to play the reed loudly. And now softly. And it responds in both cases, so the offset has been corrected. In general, fine offset adjustments can only be made when the instrument is assembled, and it's definitely best that the player does this themselves because only you know how you want to hit that note. The most difficult reeds to adjust are definitely those on the inside of the reed plate because it's harder to get at them, and Gabi's going to show you how to do this. You put the hook inside the slot and lift the tip of the inside reed through the slot. When you're doing this, you need to be careful not to damage the wind saver of the reed next to it in the same slot because, of course, that wind saver's on the inside and you can't see it. So that is how you lower the offset of a reed situated on the inside of the reed plate. And now Gabi's going to show you how to raise the offset of a reed set on the inside of the reed plate. She puts the tip of the hook tool under the wind saver and pushes the tip of the reed downwards. As it isn't possible to plink reeds situated on the inside of the reed plate, the best way to test whether you've set the offset right is to play them, first of all loudly and then softly. Excellent. As you see, it functions with both, so the operation was successful and the patient is still alive. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO6, Wind Savers. Chromatic harmonicas are fitted with wind saver valves so that when you blow into the channel, then The valve can close over the draw reed and all of the air runs over the blow reed. For this workshop, you need the following tools: the reed lifter, the wind saver glue, both from the Hohner service set, and of course the wind savers. And if you've run out of them, then you can get them from your local music retailer or from the Hohner C shop. This is the spring foil, which ensures that the wind saver returns to its rest position on the reed plate. And this is the sealing foil, which actually prevents the air from flowing over the reed. The first step is to remove the old wind saver by pulling it carefully off the plate. Using the reed lifting blade, clean the remains of the old glue off the point where the wind saver was stuck to the plate. It doesn't matter if you scratch the plate a little bit there, because the roughness will help the next lot of glue to stick better. What you should on no account do is use solvents to remove the remains of the glue, because this can dissolve it and then it can run into the slot, which will definitely ruin the reed. So please use no solvents. It's also important to ensure that none of the remains of the old glue fall into the slot, because they can also block the reed. The next step is to select the new wind saver. The easiest way to choose the right one is to simply take one that is exactly the same length as the one that you've just removed. This is the old wind saver, and this is the new wind saver. In order to ensure that the wind saver lies absolutely flat over the reed plate, it can help, before you apply the glue, to just stroke the end over, as Gabi is doing here, so that you put a very light curvature on it. The tube of wind saver glue is sealed, and you need to open it like this. Please don't use a pin. And there we go. Here you see Gabi is putting the glue on the foot of the wind saver, just a tiny little drop of it. And here we have the right amount. Press the new wind saver gently but firmly into position over the slot. As you can see, Gabi has also straightened it out so that it is exactly aligned, parallel to the sides of the slot. The glue takes half an hour to dry fully, but if you need to correct the position of the wind saver, then you really want to do it within the first minute while the glue is still soft. The base of the wind saver should overlap the plate by about the same amount as the foot of the reed, the rivet pad of the reed does. The wind saver needs to be centered, it needs to be lying flat on the plate, and it's very important that no glue gets into the slot. These are all things that you have to watch out for at the foot of the wind saver. Along the length of the wind saver, it's important that it runs parallel to the slot, that it is symmetrically positioned over the slot, and that it's absolutely flat. At the tip of the wind saver, there's two things to watch out for. It really shouldn't be standing away from the reed plate, as in the example which Gabi is showing you at the moment. It should be lying flat on the reed plate. The other thing is that the overlap should not be too great. The end of the wind saver shouldn't hang over the end of the slot by more than a very small amount. A wind saver which is mounted wrongly can sometimes sound like this. If your wind saver makes noises like that, it's almost 100% certain that it's worn out and needs replacing. And this is what it's meant to sound like. Beautiful. and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop C07, Tuning. Many people are surprised to learn how easy it is to tune harmonicas yourself. As reeds will sometimes go out of tune, and as you need to tune replacement reeds or fine-tune replacement reeds, it's really an invaluable skill. It has great musical value because it means that your playing is going to sound a lot nicer. So we would like to explain to you how to do it. For this workshop, you need the following tools: the reed lifter with reed wrench, the tuning scraper, the hook tool, and of course the tuning file. In addition to these tools, you will also need a chromatic tuner. Of course, you can use any commercially available chromatic tuner, but we suggest that you use what we're using here, the Hohner Harmonica Tuner. This is available as a download from the Hohner C Shop. In this workshop, we're going to show you how to tune individual reeds. This is the same process that one uses when tuning entire reed plates, but the idea here is that you can correct reeds which have gone out of tune or fine-tune replacement reeds. Chromatic harmonicas are tuned to equal temperament, which means that the octave is divided into 12 equal semitone steps. This is the same system that's used on the piano, and it's also the way that most chromatic tuners are set up. As with all reed adjustments, it's very important to plink the reed with the reed lifter at regular intervals while you're tuning. This helps the tuning value to settle, and it means you can measure the results much more easily. In all tuning operations, we recommend that you proceed with care. Use minimum pressure, and after 2 or 3 strokes of the file, it's time to check the tuning value again. Before you check it, always remember to plink the reed. There are 4 fields on the display of the Hohner Harmonica Tuner which are relevant for our purposes. The first one shows the note which is being played. A equals 440 Hz is equivalent to A4 in international parlance. Each semitone is divided into 100 cents, and this display shows the cent deviation from the programmed value. Now we're going to set up the basic intonation value so that we have a clear starting point for our tuning. We're going to program the note value to A equals 443 Hz. This sounds a bit sharp, but there are 2 reasons for doing this. The first is that the pitch of the note drops when you put the covers back on, and the other is that the air pressure of the player will also cause the intonation to drop slightly when playing at normal volume. The 4th field, which is of interest to us here, is at the bottom. This is an analog display which shows the deviation from the programmed value. This is helpful in recognizing the tendency of the change in pitch of the note when you're tuning it. When tuning harmonicas, we recommend that you always play the note that you are trying to measure on the tuner at minimum air pressure, because if you play it louder, you will cause it to intone lower than it will if you play quietly. This will falsify your readings. So remember, always tune with minimum air pressure. If you don't play the notes with minimum air pressure and an open throat position, you will tend to bend the note down, and this will falsify your readings. There are 2 basic cases that we will have to deal with when tuning notes. Either the note is too high or it's too low. And we're going to start with a note that is too low because usually they go flat through playing. So we'll start with a note that is tuned lower than the value that it should have and is mounted on the outside of the reed plate because this is the easiest reed to reach. This is a note which is clearly too low. As you can see from the display, this note is intonating at about -22 to -24 cent below the value which it should have. So this is how you go about it. Taking the reed lifting blade, you slip it under the tip of the reed, about halfway along the length of it, and then file from the tip towards the rivet, slightly diagonally to remove material from the surface of the reed at the tip. After a few file strokes, it's time to snap the tip of the reed so that it can settle the tuning value. This is an invaluable process which is used on all reed work operations because it helps you settle the tuning value of the reed. Now you can measure it again. Now we're going to see what the tuning value has changed to. So it's come up somewhere between 8 and 10 cents, but we need to take it up further. When you're learning to do this, we recommend that you only take a few file strokes before rechecking the tuning value, because it's quite easy if you take off too much material to go up or down too far. Now the note is sounding at the right pitch again. Now we're going to show you how to tune a note which is mounted on the outside of the reed plate, a draw note, which is too sharp, how to tune it downwards. This is fairly seriously sharp, so we're going to tune it down. So to tune the reed down, we once again slip the reed lifter under the reed to support it and prevent it being pushed into the slot. And then, using the scraper, push it towards the rivet at the back end of the reed to carefully remove material from the surface there. This makes the reed slightly more flexible, so it lowers the pitch. And now we've got it tuned down to exactly the right pitch. So we've shown you how to tune draw reeds up and how to tune draw reeds down, which, as you've seen, are located on the outside of the reed plate. Now what we're going to do is show you how to tune blow reeds. They are rather more difficult because they are located on the inside of the reed plate. And first of all, Gabi's going to show you how to tune a flat blow reed up to pitch. This is clearly flat, so we're going to tune it up. In order to make it easier for you to see what's going on here, we've removed the wind saver from above the slot. The first step is to slip the tip of the hook tool inside the channel opening at the front and very carefully push the tip of the reed up through the slot. Then you can catch it with the reed lifter, slip the reed lifter under the tip of the reed, and then you have a working surface so that it doesn't slip back again and you can file it. And now Gabi removes the hook tool from the slot and can work on the tip of the reed. Exactly like tuning a draw reed, basically. There's a couple of things you need to watch out for when doing this. The first thing is not to damage the valve, which is over the other reed, the draw reed, in the same hole, because it's right next to the reed you're working on, but you can't see it. And the other thing is try not to scratch the mouthpiece with the file while filing material from the tip of the reed, as this will make it rather rough on your lips and spoil the appearance. As the reed's on the inside of the reed plate, it's not possible to plink the reed. So what you do is play it sharply a few times. This stabilizes the tuning value because the reed has to work a bit, and now we can measure the tuning value again. Unfortunately, she was a little too enthusiastic and we've gone a bit too far. So we can now use this wonderful opportunity to show you how to tune a blow reed down. We once again use the reed scraper and pushing it towards the rivet, we take material off the back part of the reed surface. It's important here not to use too much pressure on the surface of the reed because this can push it away from the reed plate and increase the offset, which we don't want to do. In exactly the same way, when you're tuning draw reeds, you don't want to use too much pressure because you can push them into the slot and change the offset. So now we've tuned the note down again to its correct value. when you've had a bit of practice at tuning reeds, you'll find that it's possible to tune blow reeds even when the valve is affixed to them. And Gabby's going to show you how she does this. Slip the hook tool once again into the channel opening and lift the reed under the valve. Then, with the file, you slip that under the valve as well and work on the tip of the reed. If you want to tune a blow reed down when the wind saver is on it, you do it like this. Lift the wind saver, slip the scraper underneath it, and push carefully towards the rivet end to remove material. You have to once again be careful here not to alter the offset in the process. Hello and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop CO8, reed replacement. It can happen that when it's been played a lot, a reed develops a crack and breaks. It's not necessary to throw your harmonica away or install a complete new reed plate when this happens, because Hohner has developed a tool set, the Hohner Instant Workshop set, which will enable you, the player, to replace defective reeds. Now we're going to introduce this tool set to you. The first tool you're already familiar with, it's our old friend, the reed lifting blade, which is used in fact in almost all harmonica repair operations. The most important part of the new toolkit has to be the special pliers, the de-riveting tool. This is a pair of pliers with two different heads. The small head, which is in there at the moment, is for pressing out the old reed, and the large head is used for punching a hole in the wind saver if you wish to place a wind saver over the bolt, which is how the new reed is installed. The next tool is the reamer. This is used for enlarging the holes in reed plate and reed to a size of 1.4 millimeters so that the bolt will fit to them, because the stud bolts, which the new reeds are mounted on, are of that dimension and larger than the holes in the reed plate. The next tool is the universal holder. This is used to hold the reamer, and it's also extremely useful for putting the new stud bolt into the plate. Then we have a drill bit. This is used for deburring the holes which we have reamed out in the reed plate and in the reed. The next tool is a tap, a 1.4 millimeter tap, which is used to cut a thread in the reed plate because the bolt is screwed into the reed plate. Then we have a screwdriver, which fits the new stud bolt. And we have a special star nut holder, which is for screwing the star nut onto the stud bolt to affix the new reed. Then we have the actual nuts and bolts themselves. Here we have the star nuts, very pretty little nuts, and here we have the stud bolts. And these are the tools that you need to change reeds. So in order to proceed further, you're going to have to take your harmonica apart, taking off the covers and also the reed plates. When you've dismantled your harmonica, the next step is to remove the wind saver over the broken reed. After removing the wind saver, the next step is to clean the glue off the reed plate with the reed lifting tool. Now we can take the de-riveting tool and remove the old reed. For this purpose, it's absolutely essential that you choose the correct bit because the other one will simply ruin the reed plate. You need to choose the smaller bit for this operation because its diameter is the same as the rivet and it will press out the old rivet. And you screw it tightly in to the deriveting tool. Now you have to position the reed plate in the deriveting tool in the correct position to press out the old rivet. In order to do this, you have to position the rivet pad of the old reed in the recess side of the deriveting pliers. And you press the bit of the deriveting tool firmly against the rivet on the other side of the reed plate. And now we have to squeeze really hard in order to press out the old rivet. Go for it, Garby. And here we have the broken reed and the old rivet. You may be wondering where the replacement reed comes from. Well, this is a complete set of reeds for a Super 64 chromatic, which you can obtain from the Hohner C shop, and it will be assembled for your needs in the Hohner factory. So, the next step is to position the reamer in the universal holder, screwing it tight so that it's sitting firmly. And now you use the reamer to ream out the hole in the reed plate to the size that will fit the stud bolt. In order to do this, you don't push the reamer through the reed plate for further than half of its length. Otherwise, the hole will be too big. The next step is to cut a thread in the reed plate using the 1.4mm tap. Before you start, it's absolutely essential to make sure that the tap is perpendicular to the reed plate because otherwise your thread is going to be off-center. In order to do this, at first you have to exert quite considerable pressure, and after turning the tap 2 or 3 times, you'll find that you don't need so much pressure and it turns freely. This means that the thread has been cut. Now it's necessary to deburr the reed plate on the opposite side to that from which you reamed it out. If one doesn't deburr the reed plate, then it won't be possible for the reed to sit absolutely flat on the plate. The next step is to mount the stud bolt in the reed plate. In order to be able to insert it accurately, it's a good idea to put it into the universal holder and screw it in the first turn or two with that. These bolts are extremely small, so you have to fiddle around a little bit to get them sitting in the holder correctly. Now we can screw the bolt into the reed plate so that it sits in the thread that we've just cut. Now you screw the stud bolt with the holder into the reed plate up until the head reaches the plate, and still turning, you pull the holder off the bolt head. In order to tighten the bolt properly, you then use the screwdriver. Now the stud bolt is set in the reed plate. Now we have to put the reamer back into the universal holder because the next step is to ream out the hole in the reed. This time, instead of only putting the reamer into the hole to half of its length, we have to put it all the way in, right up to the hilt, because the hole in the reed can definitely be a bit larger than the hole in the plate, as this will help us center the reed at a later point. We've cut this sequence because it takes quite a while to ream the reed out to the whole length of the reamer. You can, if you wish, ream from both sides, but then you will also need to deburr both sides. We've now reamed out the hole in the reed to the full length of the reamer. And the next step is to deburr the rivet pad. If you've reamed it from both sides, you will need to deburr it from both sides. When you are deburring, it's very important not to press too hard, otherwise you can deform the rivet pad. This also applies to deburring the reed plate. So, We now place the new reed over the stud bolt. And then we have to attach the nut. In order to mount the nut on the stud bolt, we need to first set it into the star nut spanner. And Gabby's going to show you how this is done. You pick up the nut on your fingertip and then place it into the opening on the star nut spanner. Then you have to turn it the other way up so it doesn't fall out. And you screw it on in this position. So now we screw the nut onto the stud bolt. It's a good idea to center the reed with your finger from the other side while you're doing this. And as you see, we are screwing it on from underneath so that the nut doesn't fall out of the star nut spanner. It's not possible to over-tighten these nuts, so don't worry about that. You just screw them on until it sits real nice and firm. Now the new reed needs to be centered, offset and tuned as shown in the workshops C04, 05 and 07. So if you've succeeded in this endeavour, then the result should sound like this. Hallelujah. Hello, and welcome to the Hohner Harmonica Workshops. Workshop C08.1, Perforated Wind Savers. If you've just replaced a reed, as we've shown you how to do in workshop C08, then you will no doubt have noticed that the stud bolt head projects out of the opposite side of the reed plate. What this means is if you're going to be able to glue on a new wind saver, then you'll have to make a hole in it so that it fits over the stud bolt head, and this is what we're going to show you how to do now. For this workshop, we need the following tools. The combined de-riveting tool, but this time we're not going to use the small bit that was needed to press out the old rivet in the previous workshop, but the other head, 10B, which is larger and is used to punch an appropriately sized hole into the new wind saver. Then we need, of course, the set of wind savers so we can select the appropriate size and wind saver glue. So the first step is to screw the bit 10B into position in the pliers. It's very important that you don't screw it in all the way. The tip of the bit should not project further than the inner surface of the pliers. Now we need to choose the appropriately sized wind saver. The easiest way to do this is to place it next to the reed slot. It should overlap at the rivet end by about as far as the rivet pad does.